So they can't possibly fuck this up, right? Right? Wait, they cut out mercenaries? They cut out the clock tower? Nemesis barely shows up? Oh no.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Let me just start this off by saying I'm a massive fan of Resident Evil. I've completed every game in the main series, and at least tried most of the spin-offs. So this critique comes from someone who wants the best for this franchise. So let's get down to brass tacks. The Resident Evil 3 Remake is a disappointment. Given that it was released barely over a year after the RE2 remake, we should have all seen this coming.
Hey, the same thing happened in case of Resident Evil 3, Nemesis. But for some reason, you like it. I guess it's due to the presence of exploration and complicated puzzles that make you have this negative review. You know what made Resident Evil 3, Nemesis seem longer? The puzzles and the exploration.
Resident Evil 3 Remake is a disappointment. Given that it was released barely over a year after the RE2 remake, we should have all seen this coming.
Resident Evil as a franchise hasn't been this consistently good since RE4. The most frequent culprit is Resident Evil 4.
The most frequent culprit is Resident Evil 4.
So I really hope this isn't the beginning of another descent into mediocrity. My heart can't handle another Resident Evil 6. So back to RE3. There are 4 main reasons the game is a step down from RE2. 1. It's too short. 2. It's too linear. 3. It can't decide if it wants to be survival horror or action horror.
1. It is short because it is linear. If original Resident Evil 3 had no puzzles and exploration, it would be short too. And all Resident Evil games, except 7, are short. 2. All the Resident Evil games are a mixture of horror, survival, and action. Why do you think you have the ability to carry guns and defend yourself? The only difference between each other is the pace at which they are set to run in the story. Resident Evil 3 the original was also shorter than its predecessor. So, I don't know why you expected it to be a lot longer. Probably because you compared it to Resident Evil 2 the remake. Also, the only reason Resident Evil 2 games seem longer than their successors is due to the fact that there are 2 campaigns, while in Resident Evil 3 games there is just one focused on 2 playable characters.
1. It's too short. 2. It's too linear. 3. It can't decide if it wants to be survival horror or action horror.
And 4. It's not even a remake.
A remake is a retelling, created in an upgraded and better game engine than its source material. Most of the old assets are not used in remaking a game. Everything from character models to the environments is made from scratch, to utilize the current gaming hardware.
First off, the Nemesis redesign is great. His face is suitably terrifying for the more realistic aesthetic of the modern games. The trash bag coat looks weird, but I can see what they were going for. The Nemesis redesign is great. And 4, it's not even a remake.
It's not even a remake.
Kill me.
One hand grenade. Yeah, seriously, just one. In the original game, 16 standard grenade rounds weren't enough to take him down. Now, just one hand grenade. Fucking lame.
He drops powerful unique items each time, including 2 new guns, a case that can hold 3 first aid sprays, and if you kill him 7 times, you get infinite ammo for 1 gun of your choosing. The only inherent problem with this system is that if you decide to fight Nemesis even once, you should try to kill him at least 5 times, if not all 7. Otherwise you can get stuck with half of a shotgun and major blue balls. Not to mention you'll kill your ranking with the buckets of first aid spray that you have to douse yourself with.
Now, just 1 hand grenade. Fucking lame.
Lame! Oh, look at little Goblin Jr. Gonna cry?
At least he still drops items when he's stunned, but only the first 2 are unique. They're both upgrades for the handgun, and any further Nemesis KOs just drop ammo. The shooting feels pretty good, even better than 2, despite what hack journalists might tell you. Every weapon feels as powerful as they should be, at least on standard difficulty. Carlos straight up punches enemies in the face, and the slow-mo afterward feels badass as hell. 3. It can't decide if it wants to be survival horror or action horror.
Carlos straight up punches enemies in the face, and the slow-mo afterward feels badass as hell.
Speaking of Carlos, his character has been improved a bit while maintaining the friendly attitude he had in the original. He's now both cool and a nice guy, maybe a little unrealistically so.
Just so you know, I'm not into that pain is pleasure thing, okay? No! You wanna ask me out? All the foxy ladies love my accent. It drives them crazy. Stars, I see. Kill me! Yeah! Murphy! Why? No. Ah!
S.T.A.R.S.
Speaking of Carlos, his character has been improved a bit while maintaining the friendly attitude he had in the original. He's now both cool and a nice guy, maybe a little unrealistically so.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Capcom also greatly expanded the role of Tyrell, a character you probably don't even remember in the original because he dies right after we meet him. Now Tyrell actually serves a supporting role for both protagonists, appearing for most of the second half of the game. And 4, it's not even a remake.
It's not even a remake.
Other than these few points, I'm glad that this story has remained mostly intact. And 4, it's not even a remake.
Stories remain mostly intact.
The developers even add an explanation why Jill was still in Raccoon City at the start of the game. But that's where the positives end. If you've seen any review for this game, you've no doubt seen the reviewer mention that the game is too short. Well, simply put, it is. But it's not just the campaign's length that's the problem. The game is incredibly bare bones in terms of overall content.
The game is incredibly bare bones in terms of overall content.
Kill me.
The 6-hour story is literally all there is. And what the reviewers I've seen have neglected to mention is that those 6 hours are padded by nearly 2 hours of cutscenes.
Is that those 6 hours are padded by nearly 2 hours of cutscenes.
There's not a single story in the entire history of Resident Evil that needs 2 hours of cutscenes. But honestly, I wouldn't even care if we got at least 8 hours of gameplay. You know what would have made the game longer? The fucking clock tower. This will probably be the first of several times I bring this up, but the clock tower and Gravedigger were clearly cut so that Capcom could rush the game out.
But the clock tower and Gravedigger were clearly cut so that Capcom could rush the game out.
Method to actually get the points for the bonus shop are questionable at best. Basically, you have to complete the challenges in the records menu, another carryover from RE2. Unlike RE2, a lot of the challenges are complete garbage. Kill 80 enemies with the Magnum, 400 with the assault rifle, 2,000 overall. In the original game, 16 standard grenade rounds weren't enough to take him down.
Wait a moment there. So doing this is stupid, but having to shoot Nemesis numerous times in the original is not? I mean, just because they changed the context, you suddenly hate that?
In the original game, 16 standard grenade rounds weren't enough to take him down. Complete garbage. This is fucking stupid. Nightmare is unlocked after beating Hardcore, and it actually changes a few gameplay elements. Enemies have more health and are significantly more aggressive, meaning even zombies are a threat. Nemesis becomes impossible to outrun at this point, forcing you to get good at the dodge mechanic, or buy the S.T.A.R.S manual from the bonus shop.
Nemesis becomes impossible to outrun at this point, forcing you to get good at the dodge mechanic, or buy the S.T.A.R.S manual from the bonus shop.
Liar!
Because the extreme linearity of the story, none of them force you to relearn the map, like other modes would in past games.
But why would linearity be stupid anyway? If you think about it, in the middle of a zombie outbreak, I doubt you'd waste your time wandering around and solving puzzles. No, sir, they deliberately removed a lot of content because they went for a more realistic approach with this game.
Because the extreme linearity of the story, none of them force you to relearn the map, like other modes would in past games.
Wait, what are you talking about? What has a story to do with puzzles and explorations? They are two different things. Also, Resident Evil has always been a linear game in terms of story. The puzzles and exploration in the old games were the developers' way of making the games seem not less boring.
Because the extreme linearity of the story.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The biggest changes are enemy spawns, including more Lickers, Hunters, and Nemesis parasite zombies. You also get the Magnum at the beginning of the game, which is the best way to complete its respective kill challenges legitimately. And 4, it's not even a remake.
It's not even a
But Inferno is so unforgiving that you basically need the infinite launcher in the S.T.A.R.S manual. One hand grenade. Yeah, seriously, just one.
But Inferno is so unforgiving that you basically need the infinite launcher in the S.T.A.R.S manual.
Not cool, man. Not cool.
So, if my theory is correct and the devs were crunched for time, the bonus shop was probably the best thing they could come up with. The fault lies with the greed of Capcom once again.
So, if my theory is correct and the devs were crunched for time, the bonus shop was probably the best thing they could come up with. The fault lies with the greed of Capcom once again.
Cool story, bro. Changed my life.
The RE2 remake sales must have exceeded their expectations, and they rushed out RE3. The linearity baffles me.
The linearity baffles me.
How can you say it's a remake if basic design principles from the original have been completely thrown out? At least he still drops items when he's stunned. Speaking of Carlos, his character has been improved a bit while maintaining the friendly attitude he had in the original. He's now both cool and a nice guy. The story has remained mostly intact. Basically, you have to complete the challenges in the records menu, another carryover from RE2.
How can you say it's a remake if basic design principles from the original have been completely thrown out?
The game is so linear at times that they should rename it Uncharted Evil 2. It's too linear.
Earlier you just said it is too linear, now you say it is at times linear.
Kill me.
It already has the crazy set pieces, it just needs an actually likable protagonist.
It just needs an actually likable protagonist.
Nearly half of this game is a series of chase sequences. Don't get me wrong, in concept this is a great idea for implementing Nemesis. The issue is that the chases are all highly scripted. This is apparent from the very beginning of the game, where you basically just hold forward while watching a bunch of cutscenes of Nemesis throwing Jill around. Even the city segment, where the Nemesis chases actually seem more interactive, for lack of a better word, they're not. Nemesis is scripted to spawn in specific places if he's off screen, so it kind of breaks immersion and can even be exploited a little bit to your advantage.
It's kind of the same thing if you think about it. The only difference is that this game was specifically designed for a larger audience, not just Resident Evil 3 fans. And it's not that he is heavily scripted. He has always been heavily scripted. The difference makes his use during the gameplay. But then, Resident Evil has always been a game about survival when it came from the character's perspective. And by the way, the camera angle perspective in the original already worked out like a cutscene. Do you get me? If Nemesis was as resilient as its original counterpart in the remake, you wouldn't stand a single chance at completing it during the game. Certainly not on this engine. In Mr. X's case, it works, because he is unarmed, and he moves slow. And there are also less zombies.
Nemesis is scripted to spawn in specific places if he's off screen, so it kind of breaks immersion and can even be exploited a little bit to your advantage.
This is the only way.
Honestly, if the game was longer, the linearity wouldn't be as bad. Resident Evil 4 is still my favorite in the franchise, and it's about as linear as it gets. But even besides the fact that RE4 has 12 hours of actual gameplay versus RE3's pitiful 4 hours.
Since Resident Evil 3 was originally intended to just be a spin-off, the game features less overall content than the rest of the series. No B scenario, no bonus modes except mercenaries.
And I bet that didn't piss you off, because? Probably nostalgia. The only reason you believe Resident Evil 2 Remake is better it is due to the fact that puzzles and exploration actually works in a slow-paced closed environment, so it comes off as naturally. But when it comes to a fast-paced open environment, it actually doesn't. The only reason it did in the original was due to the constant need of hiding from Nemesis. That was its only purpose. Did I mention they were going for a more realistic story-driven direction with Resident Evil 3 Remake?
And of course, in typical Resident Evil fashion, there are puzzles, which makes absolutely no sense this time around. And of course, in typical Resident Evil fashion, there are puzzles, which makes absolutely no sense this time around.
This is the only way.
RE3, this mostly holds true as well, but control is taken away from you far too often, even outside of cutscenes. It gets really obnoxious on repeat playthroughs.
So, what you are saying is that Dead Space sucks? Because that is what this remake did. It switched the player's needs for action in detriment to the character's wants in a fast-paced environment. Why do you think your control over the character is minimal? They were changing the direction of the franchise. It isn't like it was the first time, though. And now do you get why the exploration and puzzles were removed? Because the game was no longer about you having fun, it was about seeing Jill Valentine's story.
But control is taken away from you far too often, even outside of cutscenes. It gets really obnoxious on repeat playthroughs. I really wish I had more to say on this subject.
Because it pisses me off on principle.
Suck it up.
Here we are, once again. The eternal struggle of Resident Evil. Survival versus action. I love both genres, but rarely do they mix well. The two conflict in many ways, from the ammo to the progression systems, and of course, the combat. The RE2 remake did a pretty good job of sprinkling in bits of shooting mechanics to make killing zombies fun instead of just a waste of resources. The weapon upgrades were a nice carryover from the original that made the game feel a little more action-y with the new mechanics. But while these additions made the game more modern and engaging, at its heart, it's still a survival horror game. RE3, on the other hand, rides the line.
Okay, mister. What you are saying here doesn't make any sense. Resident Evil 3 has always been a blend of action, horror, and survival. Why do you think you are given choices in the original? Each choice facing Nemesis in the original is one that revolves around action fighting him, or avoiding him survival. Also, him chasing you with zombies around you is both an element of survival and action, because not only he chases you, but you can shoot zombies to escape, and you can dodge. In the remake they simply distributed these elements in Carlos and Jill's campaigns.
RE3, on the other hand, rides the line.
Kill me.
It reminds me a bit of the first RE Revelations, which tried to have both action and horror segments, which anyone will tell you was really jarring. The sections where you played as Chris and Valley Girl weren't great, but the ones with Dumb and Dumber were even worse.
Pass me the screwdriver.
Sure, huh?
Please, don't tell me you dropped it.
Wait, you find this dumb? But somehow solving puzzles and exploring locations during a zombie outbreak, for some reason, it is not?
Complete garbage. This is fucking stupid. The bad part is that the shooting still isn't really made for third-person shooting. The anti-bloom, or focus mechanic, or whatever it's called, was clearly designed around slow-paced gunplay.
It's not like the angle perspective on Resident Evil 3, Nemesis worked either. But, whatever.
RE3 gives you enough ammo to kill every enemy in the game, so that's yet another problem.
Jill! Go after Nikolai! He's got the vaccine!
What about you?
We're running out of time. I've got this.
I know you do.
Look, just so you know, this is the last fucking time.
If you can believe it. This was actually what baffled me most of all about this game. The RE2 remake faithfully recreated large sections of the police station, while adding in a lot of new rooms and rearranging the structure of the building to make more sense from a realism perspective. And of course, in typical Resident Evil fashion, there are puzzles, which makes absolutely no sense this time around. The point is that RE2 is successfully both a remake and a reimagining. It stands on its own and pays proper respect to the original.
Disappointed!
As you no doubt already know, RE3 does not pay respect to the original. Even if we completely ignore the removal of the clock tower and gravedigger, which I will never let go. And of course, in typical Resident Evil fashion, there are puzzles, which makes absolutely no sense this time around.
Which I will never let go.
It's time to let old things die.
Devs didn't even try to remake any of the areas from the original game.
Devs didn't even try to remake any of the areas from the original game.
Sure, Raccoon City is still a city, but none of the actual parts of the city resemble the original. No weird puzzles, which makes absolutely no sense this time around. Some of the changes are just strange, like the decision to make Zombie Brad canon instead of remaking the iconic scene where he gets killed by Nemesis.
Brad! Here they come!
Get here!
There's so many.
Door behind you, go!
Don't think about it. We're gonna make a run for it.
Come on, Jill. We know how this ends.
No, I don't.
Are we still a team?
Always.
Then do me a favor. Don't fuck up like I did. Go!
Like the decision to make Zombie Brad canon instead of remaking the iconic scene where he gets killed by Nemesis.
Cool story, bro. Changed my life.
The complete redesign of Nemesis' second and third forms. The second form looks pretty good actually, like a Bloodborne boss, but it doesn't really capture the spirit of the original. The boss fights are cool, so I won't knock it too hard, but the redesign was just unnecessary. The third form though, what the fuck were they thinking? This giant mass of flesh could crush Jill in an instant.
This giant mass of flesh could crush Jill in an instant.
To quote my Dead Space review, they chose generic boss fight design number 12, which is basically really big guy leans over a platform and tries to smash you. Kind of a disappointing conclusion.
Because it was meant to emphasize on the action aspect?
This is why I compared the game to Resident Evil 5. Jill picks up an 8-foot-long railgun with her wimpy arms multiple times and blasts Nemesis to bits. This is one step down from boulder punching people.
This is why I compared the game to Resident Evil 5.
Every word of what you just said was wrong.
And then we have the problem of Jill. If this video gets any mainstream attention, I know I'm going to get hate for this, but she's just straight up unlikable. They tried making her a strong, independent woman who don't need no man.
Kill me.
But they just made her a bitch. She's an ass to everyone in this game except Brad, and yet Carlos keeps complimenting her and calling her super cop, which is cringy as hell.
I'm sorry about your daughter, but there isn't gonna be any rescue. We have to get out of here. What did you do?
I had no choice. He was about to turn into a zombie. It would have been a threat, so I eliminated it.
But he was still conscious, wasn't he?
He was as good as dead. And it took fewer bullets to kill him now than it would have if he had transformed.
What are you talking about? We made it!
You don't get it. They have no intention of letting us make it back alive. Do you really think we can trust their great evacuation plan? Huh, it's just a piece of paper.
But we don't have any other choice than to trust them right now.
No, if we're gonna die, then we should get to choose when it happens.
So that's it then, huh? You're giving up?
No, I can't handle it.
They just made her a
She also has these bizarre one-liners with Nemesis, which, again, I can't describe as anything other than cringe. Just listen to this.
Come on, you creepy ass stalker. You want stars? I'll give you stars. It's my turn, bitch. Bitch can't even swim.
You can only blame so much of this on the voice actress. Although I would say she was definitely a poor choice, as she has a tendency to sound shrill and petty whenever she tries to sound cool.
What the hell? You do realize that these people swear is due to being under stress and rage? It's their way of releasing their emotions in verbalism. Or you forgot how Nemesis constantly chased her, and how she lost her friends.
Shrill and petty whenever she tries to sound cool.
Every word of what you just said was wrong.
Kill me.
A lot of this just comes down to bad writing. And look at her redesign. Could they have made it any more generic?
Shut up, cunt.
I know they wanted to desexualize her, but they went way too far.
Not cool, man. Not cool.
She also has these bizarre one-liners with Nemesis, which, again, I can't describe as anything other than cringe. Just listen to this.
Come on, you creepy ass stalker. You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Son of a bitch!
You bastard! You asshole!
Fucking hell! Son of a bitch! You bastard! What the hell? Fuck. Fuck. Damn it. Fuck. God damn it. You bastard! What the hell is that?
She also has these bizarre one-liners with Nemesis, which, again, I can't describe as anything other than cringe.
Say
what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say what one more goddamn time.
I don't know if there was some feminist consulting on this game or the American branch of Capcom was meddling in development, but this is just sad. How could they have done such a good job with Claire, but fucked up royally with Jill?
How could they have done such a good job with Claire?
Every word of what you just said was wrong.
This might be a bit of mood whiplash, but believe it or not, I actually like this game. But mostly just because of the game mechanics. Gameplay will always be king in my eyes.
Gameplay will always be king in my eyes.
That being said, this game is not worth $60.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
I'm tired of my favorite franchises being exploited and milked dry for all they're worth.
Kill me.
And of course, in typical Resident Evil fashion, there are puzzles. Though the Goddess of Time puzzle is a pain in the ass. Most of them don't take longer to solve than a couple of minutes, and they're each unique yet simple to understand.
The Goddess of Time puzzle is a pain in the ass.
Puzzles provide a nice break from the nightmares that await you around every corner.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Come on! Next time, take the fucking hit!
While I have renewed faith in Capcom after the excellent RE7 and last year's RE2 remake,
Excellent RE7 and last year's RE2 remake.
complete garbage. This is fucking stupid.
No, sir. This is absurd. Let it be written.